Have you ever looked up at the sky and noticed those white trails left behind by planes? Ever wondered what they really are? Imagine this: a clear blue sky, the sun shining bright, and suddenly a plane streaks across, leaving behind a trail of white. This, dear listeners, is a common sight we've all seen. But what if I told you that these seemingly innocent trails have stirred up quite a controversy? Yes, you heard that right. They are the center of a hot debate that's been going on for years. Let's start with the basics. These white trails you see are called contrails, short for condensation trails. According to the scientific community, they're formed when hot jet exhaust cools down rapidly in the cold upper atmosphere. These trails are said to be composed of water vapor that quickly freezes into tiny ice crystals. Much like how your breath fogs up on a cold day, these contrails are essentially the plane's breath fogging up the sky. But wait, there's another side to this story, a theory that suggests these trails are not just harmless water vapor, but something more sinister. This is where the term chemtrails comes into play. Chem, as in chemical. The chemtrail theory suggests that these trails left behind by aircraft are actually chemical or biological agents deliberately sprayed for various purposes. The reasons suggested vary, from controlling the population to manipulating the weather. However, before we dive into the details of this theory, it's important to note that the scientific consensus firmly stands by the explanation of contrails being simply water vapor and ice crystals. So are these trails merely water vapor, or is there more to them? Let's delve deeper. To understand the controversy, we first need to grasp the science of contrails. Contrails, short for condensation trails, are a common sight in our skies, often trailing behind high-flying aircraft. But what are they, and how are they formed? Contrails are essentially human-made clouds, and their genesis lies in the interplay of basic physical and chemical principles. When an airplane soars through the sky, it burns fuel, producing exhaust gases as a result. These gases are hot, and they contain a significant amount of water vapor. Now imagine this. You're in a plane cruising at an altitude of around 30,000 feet. The outside temperature is well below freezing, often dropping to minus 56 degrees Celsius or colder. As this hot, moist jet exhaust is expelled into the frigid air, it cools down rapidly. This sudden temperature drop causes the water vapor in the exhaust to condense into tiny water droplets. These droplets then freeze into ice crystals due to the extreme cold. The result? Those familiar white trails that streak across the sky, also known as contrails. The appearance and duration of contrails can vary based on atmospheric conditions. On a dry day, the contrails might evaporate quickly, disappearing almost as soon as they're formed. But on a day with high humidity, they can linger for hours, gradually spreading out to form a kind of cirrus cloud cover. Contrails can have an impact on our environment. They can, for example, reflect sunlight back into space, producing a cooling effect. However, they can also trap heat radiating from the Earth's surface, thereby contributing to a warming effect. In essence, contrails are a byproduct of modern aviation, a visible manifestation of water vapor being rapidly cooled and frozen in the high-altitude cold air. Contrails, then, are simply visible trails of water and ice, but not everyone is convinced. Enter the chemtrail theory, a belief that has stirred controversy and debate. This intriguing theory suggests that the seemingly harmless contrails left behind by aircraft are more than what meets the eye. The chemtrail theory posits that these trails are not merely composed of water vapor and ice crystals. Instead, it proposes that they contain chemical or biological agents deliberately sprayed into the atmosphere. But why would anyone do this, you may ask? The supposed reasons behind this are as varied and complex as the theory itself. Some proponents of the chemtrail theory suggest that these sprays are part of a broader strategy for population control. They argue that the government, or perhaps a shadowy cabal of global elites, is using these chemical agents to manipulate the health and vitality of the general population. This could be done, they argue, to keep the population docile, to influence fertility rates, or even to instigate slow-burning health crises that keep the pharmaceutical industry thriving. Another popular belief within the chemtrail theory is that these mysterious trails are being used to manipulate the weather. Imagine, if you will, the ability to create rain during a drought or to prevent a hurricane from making landfall. The implications are staggering. Some theorists even suggest that these chemical agents could be used to combat climate change, or conversely, to accelerate it for reasons known only to those pulling the strings. Of course, these theories are not without their detractors. Critics argue that the chemtrail theory is nothing more than a modern-day conspiracy theory, rooted in mistrust and misunderstanding of atmospheric science. They point out that there's a lack of hard evidence supporting the claims of chemical or biological agents in contrails. Yet the chemtrail theory continues to persist, fueled by a combination of genuine concern, skepticism towards authority, and the innate human tendency to seek out patterns and explanations, even where none may exist. A chilling theory indeed, but what does the evidence say? We'll delve into that in the next scene. Stay tuned. In any debate, evidence is key. So what does the evidence say about chemtrails? Let's take a deep dive into the scientific realm where empirical evidence reigns supreme. When we look for evidence supporting the chemtrail theory, we find ourselves staring into a void. We see a lack of scientific studies and data that bolster the claim of chemtrails being anything more than contrails, those harmless streaks of water vapor and ice crystals left behind by aircraft. Scientists have undertaken numerous studies to analyze the composition of contrails. The consistent findings? They are primarily composed of water and ice. These studies use a variety of methods, from visual observations to physical sampling of the trails themselves, and yet, none have found any trace of the chemical or biological agents that the chemtrail theory insists are being sprayed into our skies. Now you might be thinking, but surely there has to be some evidence supporting the chemtrail theory. Well, dear listener, if there is, it's yet to be produced in a scientifically credible way. The majority of the so-called evidence for chemtrails comes from anecdotal reports and photographs of contrails, which don't hold up to the rigorous standards of scientific investigation. When we talk about evidence, we're talking about reproducible results, peer-reviewed studies, and data that can withstand the scrutiny of the scientific community. In the case of chemtrails, we're left with a glaring absence of these. So where does this leave us? We have a theory, one that claims our skies are being filled with harmful substances, yet there's no solid, scientifically backed evidence to support this. It's a theory that, while fascinating and provocative, doesn't seem to have any legs to stand on when viewed through the lens of empirical science. And yet, despite the lack of evidence and the scientific consensus that contrails are just that, contrails, the chemtrail theory persists. It continues to fuel debate and spark intrigue. Despite the lack of evidence, the chemtrail theory continues to thrive. Why might that be? Well, friends, let's delve into this question and explore the possible reasons for the persistent belief in chemtrails. First, we must consider the general climate of distrust in government institutions. This isn't entirely unfounded. History has proven that governments have, on occasion, been involved in clandestine operations. This precedent fuels the fire of suspicion, leading some to believe in the possibility of chemtrails. Then there is the human propensity for pattern recognition. We see faces in clouds, animals in constellations, and secret government operations in airplane contrails. The human mind is wired to seek connections, and sometimes it sees them where none exist. This psychological phenomenon, known as apophenia, might explain why some individuals are more likely to believe in the chemtrail theory. Let's not forget the allure of conspiracy theories. They offer an alternative narrative, a chance to be part of a select few who know the truth. Conspiracy theories can provide a sense of order in a chaotic world, making the inexplicable, well, explicable. The chemtrail theory, like many others, offers a simple explanation for a complex phenomenon, making it attractive to those seeking clarity. Moreover, the internet has become a breeding ground for such theories, providing a platform for sharing, discussing, and amplifying these ideas. The chemtrail theory has found a home in online forums and social media platforms where it continues to be propagated, unimpeded by geographical boundaries. And finally, there is a certain romanticism attached to the mystery of the unknown. The trails in the sky are a visible, daily reminder of our technological prowess, and yet, they hold a sense of mystery. This combination of familiarity and enigma makes them a perfect subject for speculation and debate. In the end, the trails in the sky remain a topic of fascination and debate. While the scientific consensus leans towards contrails being mere water vapor and ice crystals, the chemtrail theory persists, and so the conversation continues.